Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Bitch I Ain't Scared. I am Rob the Scholar.
And I'm Nate the Fool. Hopefully you couldn't hear my door squealing. Man, these levels. I'm not going to look at them. I'm just going to be here and present. Yes, we have been having an interesting week, I think. Rob, we never talked about your trip...
Yes.
Down to Long Beach. And just real quick, I just wanted to at least touch on the artist that you met with. So tell people where you went.
Okay, so if you guys checked out the Facebook page or group that I opened on Friday, I posted some pictures that I took over that weekend that I went over to that horror convention, the Midsummer Scream, and I actually had a lot of fun. It was my first horror convention. I didn't have too much expectation, but I did get what I wanted. I mean, they had tons of booths, a lot of cosplay, costumes, some scares. There was some set up open haunted houses out there.
Yeah.
And I came across some really cool artwork. One in particular that I really liked is, I believe the website is called Andy's Social Industries. I'm going to look that up just to be sure.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think you're right.
yeah, but I posted some of his artwork on our Instagram page, and I just think it's an amazing work. But what I really like about his specifically is that the chosen characters that he chooses to draw. I mean, these are obscure characters. Some obviously, most of them are pretty popular, of course. But he doesn't just stick to horror characters. They're like characters in his artwork that maybe said one line, but made like an impact or whatever to be remembered. And I actually tried to trick him. I picked a character that I didn't think he knew about. And what did he say? Oh no, turn the page, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what? Blowing my mind. So like I actually bought that piece of artwork. It was a character named Trickster from the movie Brain Scan. Anyone who has heard of it or seen it, pat yourself on the back, because it's one that's just really under the radar. And I just like his take on it. This is what I just think it's cool. So it's Andy Social _ Industries on Instagram. He also has a Facebook page. And he's also a really cool guy to talk to. He knows his shit, very friendly. He even created a sort of card game featuring horror characters and environments. Did you ever play like War as a kid? You know that card game War? It's just the highest card wins.
I think so, yeah. It's like 21 or whatever.
Well, he created a game sort of similar to that and used horror characters to do that, and each card has like a horror character on it. So
very cool.
That was fun. And if you guys want to check out some pictures that I took over that weekend, it's on that new Facebook group. Just look up Fear Bias Horror Headquarters, or you can just type in Fear Bias. Most likely it'll come up, and check that out, as well as join the group. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm always appreciative of artists and people who tend to recreate horror icons, or they create their own environments. I really like stuff like that. So for this week, I did my little art thing that I like to do. Maybe you guys have seen them. But, I just tried to paint the original Nightmare posters because I loved those. And it was just like, the original Star Wars posters. They always look like oil paint. They look like art. And that's sort of what I go for. I appreciate that. They don't do that so much anymore. So anytime I can see stuff that's creative, I like it. Also, last night, if you guys are living in Hollywood and you happen upon Hollywood and Vine, can you tell us what that creepy house is on the corner?
That was such a quick glance.
It was so weird.
I saw a sign. There's a sign, and it just said Stephen King's It. I don't know if it said It Experience, but I thought I told you in the car. Didn't? Oh, okay. Well,
Maybe you said it, but I was...
yeah. So there was the sign that
I was
says
hungry.
Stephen King It, and then I didn't really pay too much to it, but then I looked up, and this house did not look like a real house, and it took up a lot of space, and so I was like, "What is this?" I don't know if it was one of those escape rooms or anything like that, but it was pretty big. And you noticed it too when we were just trying to figure out like what it was. But
Yeah, I saw it, and I do remember hearing you say escape room, but I didn't hear it.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah, it has
when
something to do
you
with
say
the
that, I'm
movie.
like, oh, it does kind of look like that house I saw in the trailer. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll check that out. But
Great.
yeah, if any of you guys have noticed the same thing, let us know what that is. I'm actually pretty curious what that was.
And last but not least, we told you guys all throughout the week we were going to go see Annabelle.
Creation. Yeah.
We did. It was pretty awesome. I had never been in the giant 2-level
yeah.
room at
we went
Regal
to
downtown.
Yeah, we went to a theater that has sort of a premiere feature theater, and
It's kind of like the Dome in Hollywood, kind of, but
it's pretty big, and
Yeah.
the seats are a lot more comfortable and stuff like that. Usually, any big movie that'll open up will specifically go in that one, amongst other auditoriums, but that one specifically.
so it's the big opener this week.
Yeah. Annabelle was good. I'm sure you guys have been reading about it. It's getting great reviews so far, and this goes back to what I was saying to you a couple of episodes ago, because you were like, I don't get you, Rob. You hated Annabelle, but yet you want to see this sequel. And I'm just like, this is the thing. It's like, yeah, it's the same character, possibly the same director, but at the same time, you just never know. And regardless if the movie sucked, I still like the character. I have to check him out.
True.
And this one paid off. It was
Yeah.
super creepy. Great scare. So I was thinking about this morning. What I really liked about this movie is that these scares touched on fears that children usually have. And it wasn't like this sort of gross out, like in your face gore or, looking at monsters all day. It was that subtle imagination type scares where it's usually whatever you're thinking about or what's in your head that scares you the most. Because you didn't really see a lot happening visually as far as like the doll. I mean, you kind of did, but it wasn't
she
as
never
much.
does anything.
Yeah, and so I just think that type of tactic is really good, but it's usually stuff that kids go through. Because when you watch a horror movie with more adults, it's more of in your face and a lot of chasing around and stuff like that. This one was super subtle, and it was super creepy. And, no witnesses, and, it's always the children is just in their head. And I actually like that about this one.
Yeah. There were just a couple of like tiny little problems, which I'm not even going to get into because that would spoil things. But for me, it was like, I'm not buying that. I don't think that's humanly possible, but whatever. Or why don't people hear this happening? We're in close quarters, but whatever. Overall, it was a great experience. And again, I will say, this is consistently the only series I've ever watched that has made me scream out loud every single time. I don't even think Insidious made me scream out loud. Insidious,
really? Insidious made me scream so many times.
It ruined my soul. I'm sure it's like marked me forever. But The Conjuring, all of them, I have screamed out loud for each one. So... yes, and also if you haven't heard, stay tuned till the very end of the credits.
That's right.
Because they have this little fake out where it's like they did start the credits and then they show us something. It's like, is that what they wanted us to see? And luckily, Rob, you had the fortitude to be like, no, I think there's I'm pretty sure there's something else.
Yeah.
So stay all the way till the end.
They kind of did that in The Conjuring too, because they ended the movie with just the Annabelle doll, and you're just waiting for something to happen. And then it just so they kind of did the same thing. But yes, do stay after that. There is something more. It's not huge, but it is something that you should see.
It's really good.
It's really good.
Yeah. So and this movie it was so well done. It really was. I could go on and on about it, but so to not spoil anything, you guys should definitely go check it out. If the Conjuring movies don't get your goat, I mean, you probably won't be into it, but it's a really good movie, I
Yeah.
think. And the acting, it's all pretty much all girls, like you pointed out, Rob.
Yeah.
All women,
Mostly
young girls.
female cast here.
The men, you don't really see them very much,
No.
so it's very female driven, and those child actresses were really good.
Big shout out to Talitha Bateman. So she plays Janice.
Janice.
She's the
Janice.
She takes up most of the movie. I guess you would consider her the lead. I don't really remember her from much, but she stood out. She was her mannerisms and the way she was acting with her best friend Linda, who is Lulu Wilson. She just had a mature vibe to her when she was acting, and I was really impressed with how she was carrying that movie. So kudos to you, great actress. I hope that I see you in
Really
more
good.
stuff.
And what was her name? Samantha Sigma?
Oh, Stephanie Sigmund.
Stephanie
Stephanie Sigmund.
Samantha? Yeah, Stephanie Sigmund. Yeah, she did a really good job too. She was very sympathetic, and she was in. You said James Bond, Spectre.
Yeah, she was in Spectre.
Pretty sure
yeah.
she was his love interest at the beginning. Mm-hmm. But yeah, she did an excellent job. She had some really funny lines when she was like, "Oh Lord, please give Nancy the courage, or give her the knowledge to not sneak up on people."
That was
The
a
way
good
she
scene.
said it,
Yeah.
it was just so funny.
So just to segue into our topic today, I want to bring up something that I read this morning. They made an announcement that David F. Sandberg, who is the director of Annabelle Creation, he also did Lights Out. And he has a really good relationship with James Wan and right now New Line Cinema. So he did an interview, and I'm reading this from bloodydisgusting.com, but he did an interview where he was asked if he was given a chance to tackle a franchise, which one would it be? And his answer seemed very present, as if he is currently talking about it. And this is what he says. He goes, "I don't know. I've been thinking about what fun franchises New Line has." And that right there is like, apparently it's going to be something at New Line, because he specifically went in with that. But he says, what fun franchises New Line has, like Nightmare on Elm Street and Critters. And he says, might be fun if you took something like that in a different direction from previous installments. Like instead of remaking Nightmare, you do something continuation of it in the same world kind of thing. And I'm reading this and I'm like, I'm loving what David Sandberg is doing right now. He's a good director. I loved Lights Out, and Annabelle Creation is just another one under his belt. And if New Line or even James Wan gets a hold of these, I think that given Nightmare on Elm Street is based on dream states, they can create some really cool dreamlike scenarios, and that could really scare you. And Freddy is known to be gory, and I get that, but I wouldn't mind seeing a different sort of take on the franchise. And, you know, obviously we haven't seen Critters on screen in a while, so if they decide to do that, that would be interesting, because those were usually seen as more funny than scary to me.
Only if they bring back Angela Bassett.
Right. But it seems that they may, New Line and Sandberg may have some kind of relationship going right now.
I think so.
And, you know, a lot of people love the original franchise of Nightmare, and they don't want to see people touching it anymore. You know, New Line already, you know, technically fucked it up already. It's like, why do you want to do it again? But I trust these guys, and if anybody were to tackle it again, I would like it to be them. So I'll be keeping an eye on this story and see if they have any updates. But I thought I'd throw that in there and just say that's kind of awesome. So, today we're continuing Wes Craven month, and we are going to talk about one of his famous creations, which is Freddy Krueger. We're going to tackle the whole franchise today. He may not have directed all of them, but they obviously worked with the character he created, and he was involved with some of the writing on a few of them. So, let's talk Freddy.
So we've talked about the first one quite a bit already, just based on other topics we've had the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But it's the original, and it's what birthed all of the other sequels. And I don't think he envisioned there being more than that. I think that was it. I don't think that there was anything after that. And most directors probably don't envision, a franchise, so I'm going to make 7 Halloween movies with Michael Myers. That's a different type of story. But after that, it was just, I do feel like a lot of it was cash grab.
For the most part. I mean, that was the movie or the franchise that was bringing money to New Line. I mean, not to say that they wouldn't be alive
That's
right
true.
now,
I mean,
but they had to keep going until they could stand on their own 2 feet with other franchises.
That's true. But it's so interesting, and I mean, not to gloss over the first one, because I do feel like we have given so much love to it already, and we could talk about Johnny's crop top again. I don't mind, but just the sequel that they came out with, it was just so strange.
So before we get into that, I have 2 things that because I rewatched it. And,
the first one.
Yes, the first one. So one thing that I noticed was that, back in the 80s, the final girls, they weren't really supposed to do anything sexual. They were supposed to be the pure ones, to signify, what's good and all that stuff. But there was just something about Nancy that kind of screamed a little asexuality or lesbian. I don't know. It just kind of, I shouldn't say lesbian, but she just was not open at all to any kind of affection when it came to her boyfriend. And who knows how long they've been together, but I can understand not really being in the mood, but throughout the whole movie, you never see them kiss, you never see them hug. There's never a kiss goodbye or hello. And he even snuck over and joked about messing around, and she turned him down every single time. Wow. And I'm just is it to signify that she is literally the final girl and that was the rule, you don't have sex, or was there something going on? Because we'll get to this, but even the third one, there was the possibility of a love interest with the doctor, but then they never really touched on that, and that's fine, you don't need a love interest, but it's just they never had Nancy be that affectionate. And so I don't know, it was just something that I noticed.
That's interesting. I don't think I saw it once.
Yeah.
So I don't remember that. But now that you pointed out, yeah.
And then there's one other thing where, so do you remember the scene where she's about to go to Greg's before he dies, and she gets the phone call and she rips the phone out and wraps it up, but then the phone still rings even though it's not connected?
Yeah. Is that when the tongue comes out?
Exactly. Yeah. So here's the thing about that tongue part. She wasn't asleep. So how did that happen?
Or was she asleep? I don't know.
It was just she was stumping on the phone when she noticed it, and then she was like, oh my God, you're my boyfriend now. So then she runs out. There's really never a moment of flash where she's waking up from something, And so I was just the way that they filmed it, it just didn't seem like she was asleep. So I was always curious about that rule on how she was able to do that, or how they were able to do that.
Or maybe, I don't know. I don't know. I was going to say that's the first hint that he can be brought into the physical realm.
I guess with enough strength, I guess.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But otherwise, very
Plot
good
hole.
start. Yeah, but very good start. I, always will love it. But it was just something that I noticed.
Yeah.
So yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge is what they titled it. So here's the thing about this one. It's not my favorite. It's almost my least, but this movie was actually pretty good makeup-wise. It was disgusting. Freddy's look has never been creepier, in my opinion. He looked really, really bad in a good way, obviously. I just think the makeup jobs on all of the things that they did in this movie were top-notch. It was actually pretty gross.
Wait, one moment. Rank all of the movies in order from your favorite to least favorite.
We're going to do that now.
I'm not going to do it because I don't think I have the same affection for the series that you do. But I want to hear I'm interested to hear yours.
You want to hear this right now?
Yeah, do it before we do all of them.
Okay. So if I were to put them in order from best to least, or best to least, I would say Wes Craven's New Nightmare, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Dream Warrior,
okay,
Dream Master,
okay.
I'll say Freddy. No. I would say, no. I'll say it. Freddy's Revenge, and Dream Child, and then Freddy's Dead.
Mm-hmm. Do you put Freddy vs. Jason into the mix anyway?
I do. Okay, I'm sorry. Freddy vs. Jason, I would say, goes after Dream Master.
Okay.
So that is my list.
Yeah, that wouldn't have been my list.
I know.
So no. I mean, it was like close, but not really.
Okay.
So yeah, I just wanted to hear it before we got all the way through.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I mean, if you keep that list order in mind, you'll hear it through my talk throughout the rest of them.
All the pens writing this down because they really want to know.
Yeah. But yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street 2 was obviously a little weird. They tried to do something different. They made a guy the protagonist in the film instead of a girl, and I guess Freddy tried a different tactic on how to get into the real world realm or continue to kill kids. It's funny that they used him. I guess it was because he lived in the house, but you wonder if he was an actual Elm Street children because they moved into the house. So he had nothing to do with Freddy whatsoever or his family, and yet he paid the price only because he stayed in the house.
Yeah. And
it's obviously that fear brings him out, so I guess that's its only conduit or connection on how he can get into children's dreams as long as they remember him. A la, urban legend style. So I'm guessing that's why he was a victim. But he wasn't a part of the original clan who took him down. So it's just like, damn, that sucks it happened to him. But yeah.
Yeah, it just seems more like he was infected by the house, by the stories. Because he was a boy, it was a very different scenario. It wasn't even like Freddy wasn't trying to kill him. Freddy was trying to kill all of the girls that lived in the house every single time. He was trying to use him. He wanted to come through him, and he did, literally. But that still didn't even kill him. It's like he cuts him open and comes out of him, and that didn't kill him. So I don't know where the rules fall into place here. This one was just really off the wall, and it's called Freddy's Revenge, but Freddy's really not even in the movie.
He's not, and that's the thing with this one. Like, the dream sequences were really weird. It didn't really show. I mean, yes, Jesse had his dreams, and he would always wake up in a panic every time. But when it actually came down to an attack, I don't know. Nobody was really kind of asleep in a way for him to come out the way he did, especially when the scene with Grady. I just didn't understand exactly how the rules worked with this one on how he just went through him, and it was like, did Jesse have to fall asleep every time for him to,
like he would attack people. It was always like it was Freddy, but then it was like he would be left with the aftermath, sort of like what's her name, Helen from Candyman. It's like she was always the one there, so it's like she did it.
Yeah,
but it's like it just didn't make any sense. So it's my least favorite. I don't like it. It's too far off from the source material, and it's like right off the bat. It's like, this is the first sequel, and I think we just went too far. And also, I'm not big on the gay portrayal. I know they were trying to do something, and it's like, I can kind of appreciate what you were trying to do.
I would say the bromance between Jesse and Grady was really adorable.
Yeah, but then he fucking kills him.
I know, but it was, I don't know, I just like their bromance. He was a friend, but he wasn't, and they would always be in scenes together. I don't know how much you remember the movie. There was
the weird leather bar thing with the teacher. I don't like it. I don't like it. It was weird.
Do you remember the scene when they're in class and like Jesse's asleep and then that snake just kind of wraps around him in class?
No.
Oh my God, yeah, it was crazy. I don't know what class they were in, but there was like a pet snake in a cage that got loose and ended up wrapping around him, and this snake was huge, but apparently not one other classmate noticed it until he just yells. And everybody's all laughing at him, but then Jesse like gives him a middle finger, and it was just, oh, they're so adorable together. It was so funny. But yeah, it was just really weird scenes like that just didn't make sense. Before we move on to the next one, I do want to point out, do you remember the bitch really scene that I used from that movie? It was when they were at the party, and then Freddy comes out. Yeah. Okay, so you remember the guy that was featured in that bitch really? He is actually related to the writer of the movie because they have the same last name. So I'm like, that's probably why he was given such a spoken, role in that. So I was like, that probably explains it. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out.
You can just go ahead and just ad lib. It's fine.
But yeah, part 2, not really one of my favorites.
No. And Wes had nothing to do with that one. And I kind of feel like that's prevalent. For me, it's like you kind of see where he's involved and where he's not.
Yeah.
They just used his character in this one.
Yes, I totally agree. So then we move on to the third one, which is usually most people's favorites if you were to ask them what Freddy movie they think is the best. And everyone always says, hands down, it's Dream Warrior. And this movie, I will say, is just a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. The kids actually had a way of fighting back. Not everybody was a victim this time. We saw Nancy come back. Bigger stars were in it. And the dream sequences were actually pretty creative in this one, too. I like this. But there was also a lot of story in this one. Like, we got a lot more detail into the whole mythology of what Freddy is. Pointing out that it was the Elm Street kids and their parents, and so these were the last. Technically his mission is gonna be over after this one. And I really like this one. What do you think of this one?
I like number 3. This is the one that Wes wrote.
Yes, he co-wrote this one.
And I enjoyed it. It wasn't my top 3, but I do like it. I think it's creative, and it's more of the cringe-worthy entry. The things that he does to the kids who just aren't as savvy when they go to sleep, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like this one, and it has a lot of cameos and starring roles for people who were just starting out.
Yeah, what was it, Patricia Arquette and Lawrence Fishburne,
who's not really in the movie, guys, but they sure do put his face on the cover.
I know.
He's not a star. He doesn't do anything in the movie. He's just there.
So I want to give the character Kristen. So she is like a boss, and so in the very beginning, she's trying to stay awake and she's building the house, whatever. She took raw coffee grinds and washed it down with Diet Coke to stay awake. That is a boss to me.
A Diet Coke.
I know, right?
She's got to watch her figure.
No, I noticed. I was like, I could never do that. But she was a boss. She was trying to stay awake for that one. And it also has one of my favorite quotes too. Do you remember when the mom comes in and then her gentleman friend was downstairs and he was like, Elaine, where'd you keep the bourbon? So I write down, and I don't know why, I just love that line.
I remember the scene. I just don't remember him talking.
But then obviously they did it again.
I remember getting her head cut off.
Yeah, and because she
every time I bring home a man.
Yeah, and he because he asks again, and then Freddy comes in. He's like, I said, where'd you keep the bourbon? I just like that. I just like that quote.
Yeah, that mom was terrible. We'll get to that in a minute.
But this one had the most kills. I think it was like a good 6 out of the rest of them. I think part 4 may have had the same amount. But yeah, this was a good kill count. And the characters were actually really cool. We cared about them all. They all got like good screen time and a little bit of development, a voice. And that's why I like this one a lot.
It was good.
But we got to learn about, Freddy's mom. Her first appearance kind of came in, and we were just given a little bit of a hint as to where he comes from and, kind of what's going on with that sort of scenario of like ghosts coming back and just a realization that, the dead doesn't stay dead. But, I like this one. This was a lot of fun.
Did you have a question about Amanda Krueger? since last night. Something triggered.
Oh, what?
Because she's a nun.
There was something. As we talk about the next ones, it'll probably come up. But thanks for reminding me.
Okay.
Yeah, I know I did say something about that, but maybe it'll come back to me.
Going back to his days in Catholic school, kids. Yes. So I really enjoyed part 4. And this is something that I remember when I was a kid. I saw quite a bit of the movie, more than I should have. And this is probably around the time that I realized my Uncle Lonnie really loved the Nightmare movies. He has them all. He has a few little collectibles. Nightmare 4 was also kind of cringeworthy, but it was gross. It was gross. It has the pizza. It has the girl turning into a cockroach and her arm splitting, and it was nasty.
This one actually did have some gruesome deaths. Freddy was not holding back in this one.
And pretty much, yeah, this is the movie where the entire cast is wiped out. In 3, no, there's quite a few survivors, but in this one, there's really only 2 people left.
Yeah,
everyone dies.
So I like to call this one Nightmare on Elm Street 4, aka the new class, because they kind of went to a completely different sort of group of kids, and it was sort of like this passing of the torch. Because from part 3, there was only 3 left.
Yeah.
And then once they were gone, Kristen passed over her gift onto the next character, Alice, who then went on through part 5. Funny thing about, so, the woman who played Kristen.
Yeah.
They switched her out. I can't remember why Patricia Arquette didn't take this role again.
She was pregnant.
Oh, okay.
And I think she was, or it's like she was already working on something else, and she just couldn't do it. And they didn't want to change time or anything. They didn't want to work around it.
So they got Tuesday Night, which I just love that name. She actually is the woman who sings the opening number to the movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't know, for some reason, when I was watching, I was like, oh, okay, this is a nice little 80s tune. And I looked up who it was, and it turned out it was her.
That's weird.
Yeah. So
I don't remember that from the documentary.
I know, yeah. But she sang the opening number to that. It was so 80s.
Okay,
but
Tuesday.
Yeah. But again, we learn a lot more about Freddy Krueger and sort of the mythology in part 4 as well. There was talk about so they're in class and they talk about this dream world, and then there's a positive gate and a negative gate, and then there's this dream master, which is what the movie's called, who kind of guards the positive gate or guards it so anything negative can't come out or something like that. So it was just sort of this segue into what Alice was supposed to become. And every time somebody died, a piece of them kind of went into her, as well as Freddy. And so that's where she kind of got these, multiple sort of characteristics and carried it throughout, when she fell asleep. Because in part 3, they basically established it's your world too. You can pretty much do anything that you want, or at least have some kind of ability that you carry out every time you dream. And that was sort of Alice's sort of power.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's why part 4 was higher on my list than the other ones, because this one actually had a lot of story development in this one versus the others. So
I think I remember this one the best because of the death sequences, and Alice. Yeah. I think there's a point where she dresses like Alice in Wonderland. And since I was a little kid, that's what I associated it with, the Disney movie. So
he has that
easier
line
to remember.
Yeah, that final battle when she comes into the church and he goes, "Welcome to Wonderland, Alice." And
I don't remember that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I just remember her dressing like Alice,
but
in the blue dress.
Yeah, this one was cool. I didn't think it was well acted though. In this one, but it was still good for what it was.
I think a lot of people complain that Tuesday Night wasn't as good.
She wasn't.
Sorry, Tuesday.
Honestly, it was. I mean, her character. Because I think towards the end of part 3, the character Kristen became very strong, and then when Freddy came back, it was just whine after whine after whine. But then also, she would always talk about Freddy as if everybody knows, because she kept using the pronoun he, and he's back, and it was Freddy, and I'm like, nobody knows who you're talking about. Take 2 steps back and actually explain what's going on. It was just really hard to take her seriously because everybody thought she was crazy, but she kept talking in a way that everybody just knew what she was going through. And so she just came off as a crazy person, and it just wasn't believable.
I do have a question later about when we talk about him, the existence of him, when characters bring him up. So I have a question about that later. But anyway, on to the Dream Child.
Okay.
I don't really remember this one.
This one, okay, I
remember the comic book scene. That's about it.
This is, to me, the jumping of the shark in the franchise. Like, they've just really gone too far to come up with some excuse to bring him back.
Yeah.
The reason for him returning in this one is that the 2 remaining characters from part 4 ended up being Alice and Dan, the new couple, and the movie opens up in part 5 of them having sex, and so she ends up pregnant. And because Kristen still has the gift of bringing people into her dreams, but yet she knows how to control it and keep Freddy at bay, it's her unborn child that is dreaming and bringing people into dreams every time they fall asleep. And first of all, I don't know about the timeline of when she got pregnant versus when the baby starts dreaming, because the way it was filmed, they have sex, she gets up, she's going to graduation, and then people start dying. I don't know when embryos start having dreams, but like, come on now, when does this happen? And again, this is how Freddy comes out. To me, that's jumping the shark. You're going too far. This was a very lazy way to bring him back. And I kind of appreciate the theory for what it is, but the timeline just doesn't work out. And it just seemed a little one-sided. No matter who you were, if you fell asleep, you were dead. You couldn't fight for your life, and you couldn't stay awake. It didn't matter. As long as that child was dreaming it up, that's when he would kill you. And yeah, this is also when he started to be nothing but comedic.
Yeah.
I think they just gave up on the scares. Part 4, he was a wisecracker, but it was still done in a horror-like way. Part 5, it was just pure comedy. And if I'm not mistaken, no, he didn't do it in this one. He kind of looked at the camera, but it wasn't a break the fourth wall just yet. But
he did it in the next one. I know he did.
Yes,
that. Yeah.
yes, he definitely did. But yeah, I this is not one of my favorites. I just didn't like it. The death scenes were pretty bad too. But yeah.
Yeah, I remember the sequence of was it Kelly Jo Minter being like, I don't know, like on the weird diving board, and it was just, and even like, I mean, it was the 80s. Sure, the effects were for that time period, but even that, it just didn't look right, because it's like, we're 5 movies in, and this is what you're giving me.
Yeah,
I don't know. So yeah, it's not the best. It's not my least favorite, but it's probably right after 2. It's just like
So the comic book scene was very creative. I thought that was a lot of fun to watch. But when you've got Freddy riding a skateboard, that's where I draw the line. It's
and
like,
it's
I
like,
can't handle
they
that.
really were like just putting him into a period piece setting. He's very 80s. He's everything 80s. So I mean, you can go through these last 2 movies. It was for the MTV generation.
There was tons of, that's a good thing you brought up. There was tons of MTV stuff going on in this movie. There was even a pan where the camera just kind of went by a television that featured some group that I'm sure was on the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Freddy hosted tons of TV shows that was on MTV. I mean, that was their cash grab as well.
So I think that's something you can say about the original. It's not really dated as far as the overall story. You can look at the cinematography and effects, yes, you can tell that it's not up to standards of today, but it's not dated like these movies. These movies are part of a very specific time period, and I think if teenagers watch it, they'll be like, I don't get that. What is this referencing?
Yeah.
You know, and MTV's not even what it was when I was a teenager. Like, what's TRL?
Yeah.
Can somebody tell me what that is? If you can't, you might not understand some of these jokes, and it's like that's kind of unfortunate.
Yeah.
That people won't get that. You can watch Psycho, and it's not going to be dated by references of the time.
But this one is cool though. We get to see Robert Englund out of the makeup in part 5.
Oh, really?
Yes, because they visually give us the story behind how Freddy was created or born, or Amanda Krueger is a nun who worked in an asylum, and she accidentally got locked in.
But don't they give us that story in the third one?
They give us the story, but we don't get to see it.
I don't want to see it.
Well, in this one, they showed it. So,
I do
because that
remember
was how
this
is how Freddy came back.
Father,
yes,
or most likely this is the one that was.
Yeah. So the sequence is that Amanda was down there, and then one of the maniacs looked exactly like Freddy. Of course, it was played by Robert Englund, but apparently she was raped by all the maniacs that were in there, and then that's how Freddy came to be. And so we get a big thing about that, and apparently Amanda was sort of the solution to locking Freddy back up, because you had to unlock her remains that was like in this tower. And you don't remember this?
Sounds like a video game.
Oh, yeah, no. So while Alice was off dreaming and trying to find her baby inside of the dream, Kelly Jo Minner, she had to go to the actual asylum and like break down this brick wall.
I need to watch this now. Because,
you should have. Yeah, it's like, crazy.
I saw it when I was so young. Kelly Jo Minter going and like helping out. I mean, see, this is okay. Now I have to watch it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't really want to watch it. I already said the rape stuff is not.
Which is prevalent in Wes Craven movies. Like, I don't know if that was something in his past, but really there was a ton of like rape going on in his movies.
I'm feeling some type of way about this. I really am. Wes, what is that? And now when we even get into the second half of his filmography next week, oh my God.
So you'll love this. There was a scene where Freddy actually gets stuck in the same exact asylum, and he's attacked by all the maniacs. So they start ripping out his limbs one by one, and like specifically his arm came off, and when it hit the ground, it like splattered into a whole bunch of tarantulas.
Ew, no. So,
yeah, that's
why would I like that, Rob?
I was like, you would have loved that.
I would not have loved that.
And they would and they like crawled all over Alice. I was like, oh, I gotta tell Nate about this when we record.
So I have decided I'm not going to watch it anymore.
It was one little tidbit. You can fast forward through it.
I'm just all the way good.
But again, the dream sequences was more in a comedic way to see how creative they could get, and they were fun, but they weren't scary, and they did try and gross us out, and but not one of my favorites. So then there is Freddy's Dead Final Nightmare. And we don't even get an explanation as to even how he came back after the fifth one. But it starts off with this written narration that every single teenager in Springwood, Ohio is dead, except for one left. And that's all we get. And this was 10 years, I guess, from part 5.
No, it wasn't even 10 years.
They said 10 years.
Oh, well, it was supposed to be 10 years.
Yeah, it was supposed to be, but not like when it came out. But this is, in the franchise, it's 10 years after. And so the last kid is like trying to fly out of Springwood when it was so easy for him to drive out. I don't know what was going on, but it started off literally in a dream and it didn't work. But it was more the Freddy rule. He killed all the teenagers, which he wasn't even supposed to do. He was only supposed to do just the Elm Street kids, but he wanted more, so he found a way to get the rest of them. And then he couldn't leave Springwood So he needed a way to get out. But in this movie, we also find out more backstory as to why he chose to go after the kids instead of the parents who actually killed them. And, you know, obviously parents don't want to watch their children die, so you would assume that's the reason why. But nope. There is a different reason why he went after the kids specifically in this one. So we learn all about that in this one.
So what was the reason? The movie's been out for 20 years, guys.
So apparently, apparently when he died, he had a kid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, even though he was killing kids, he had that secret life. He had a daughter, and amongst killing him, they took his kid away and, you know, put the kid in foster care.
Okay.
And she lived out of Springwood. So the movie focused on her. She was a social worker at this place outside of Springwood. This is where the last teenager ended up. And it was a way for him to bring her back into Springwood, because the only way that Freddy could get out of town was that he needed to travel through her. It was the only blood relative, and that was the only way it was going to work. So this one had Breckenmeyer. Do you remember him?
Yeah.
Yeah, he had rocking the blonde hair. He looks so young in this movie.
He was young.
Yes.
He was a baby.
This one was okay. I mean, again, more comedic Freddy. And, you know, the dream sequences, I think they were kind of... Well, no, I will say this. So, Robert Englund, he went on record to say that his favorite death scene was in Freddy's Dead, and it was because it was really politically incorrect on the hearing impaired.
Oh,
so do you remember Carlos?
I hated that scene.
Yes,
that
nobody like. Yeah, so there's one death scene where
really
one of the kids who tried to escape the foster care home and get out of town was Carlos, and he, you know, was hearing impaired. He wasn't deaf. He was actually given the hearing impaired because of what his mother did to him.
Yeah.
So anytime that he was bad, the mom would take Q-tips and jam it in his ear, like deep into his, you know, eardrums for being bad. And so that's how he ended up losing his hearing in one ear. So in the dream sequence, he cuts off his ear and gives him another hearing aid, but then it gives him supersonic hearing, and so every little thing would be super loud to him. So then he took a chalkboard and just scratched it with his nails until his head exploded.
Yeah.
And,
I didn't like that.
So bad.
I didn't like that. It was...
But
I didn't care for Freddy's Dead. Again, I mean, I wasn't really part of that generation, but looking back, it's like it was more of a comedy, and it was sort of like beating a dead horse. You know, we've gotten so far away. I mean, and I think, and this was the one where Wes was like, man, y'all really have just gone off from where I started. This is not. And so, I mean, I guess that, you know, hey, maybe. No, I was gonna say maybe Wes isn't as rapey as I thought. Nope, because he wrote Part 3, and that's where the rape was introduced. No, never mind. They just accentuated it. But yeah, man,
there was just a lot wrong with this one.
It's just too much. It just got away from the source material, and it's like, and now, I mean, it is just popularized off of Freddy's cult status. He's like a superhero now. He's a comic book character. He's amazing, and everybody loves him. But it's still just, it wasn't great to me. So
one of the gimmicks back in the day when this was released in theaters was this was one of the chosen few that got the 3D treatment. And it was just a small sequence towards the end, because it turned out that if you wanted to disguise all of the misbehaving Freddy shape-shifting things where he channels into your fear, the way to block that is to use 3D glasses. And so the minute the character put them on is when everybody else put them on in the theaters. I unfortunately did not get to experience this because my friends chose not to take me along for the ride to go see this movie. But part of it was done in 3D. And I think because there was this interaction with the audience, you know, wearing 3D glasses, that they chose to also have Freddy break the fourth wall a couple of times and literally talk to the audience or look at them And yeah, it just gives off a very cheesy vibe. So I mean,
Yeah.
it is what it is. But I will say I did love the video game dream sequence that Spencer had. You know, Breckenmeyer's character. When the whole sequence was his dad trying to make him be like him, so he was like, "Be like me, be like me." I just love that phrase. Everybody talked about that phrase a lot when when it first came out. And then he had the power glove, which was very popular back then too. So yeah.
I don't want to completely discredit everything, because this does introduce a lot of concepts that people don't consider. I mean, just bringing up the character of Carlos with his hearing aid. These are characters that usually are not included. I mean, they even had the character in the third movie, I don't remember his name, in the wheelchair.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So it's like,
they've
they've featured people who are ADA, or at the same time, they really aren't heavily included in the story.
Yeah.
It might have been different. It might have been interesting if Carlos was like actually more prevalent, instead of taken out more than before halfway. He's taken out pretty early.
They concentrated a lot on the story. They wanted you to kind of, I guess there was some big mystery as to who the kid was. I mean, I thought it was real obvious who his child was, but they tried to hint that it was a boy when it was really a girl. And then when they went back into Springwood, you saw all of the grown-ups all going crazy by themselves, talking to themselves. Oh, and remember, Roseanne Barr and Tom Arnold did a cameo at the town fair
to memorialize their love forever. Because
that's never going away either. Yep.
I just, it's when you include these characters, they're kind of wasted. They always are. Because even I can't think of his name. But, and I hate to say that, because it's like, I need to look up his name. He was in the wheelchair, and it's like, that's what we boil him down to. Oh, he was in his wheelchair. That was the character's qualifying characteristic.
I am looking it up right now.
Because, I mean, he's not even in the story. He's barely in there. It's like he's in there for the little group meetings, but he has one nightmare, and that's the nightmare that kills him at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
So,
but I did care about him. I mean, he was a likable character. So his name was Will in the movie.
So I mean, it's like Will. He's not really heavily developed.
Yeah.
I don't think Carlos has more screen time because there's only really 3 kids.
Yeah, there's only 3. This one didn't have many. I think there was only 3 deaths, and the rest were attempts. Because that girl who knew kung fu, and she or karate or what it was, and she saw Doc and and would learn stuff from him. But yeah, she pretty much used her Dream Warrior powers and was very strong in her when she had dreams. But yeah, she also was experienced with physical abuse from her dad, and
that was an interesting thing that they brought up too. That, I mean, it's very uncomfortable to talk about. It probably wasn't even something that people really paid attention to, since it is like a cheesy horror movie.
Yeah, I mean,
it's such a serious topic that, and
we saw Freddy grow up during the whole end sequence in the 3D, because it was her turn to go inside his head, and we saw him get ridiculed at school, but then he was like taking hammers and like killing gerbils, and then we also saw the abuse he was getting from his dad, and he learned how to channel pain and not feel it anymore, who, by the way, was Alice Cooper. That was right. He played Freddy's dad.
I remember that from the doc.
Yeah, so I mean, they kind of victimize him a little bit in this one, but yeah, I mean, he grew up, obviously it was just inevitable he was going to end up being sort of.
And as far as like a social awareness, looking back into someone's past and seeing like this is why they are the way they are, yes, that's very interesting, and it helps you to humanize and to sympathize. But in a horror film, for me, I don't always want to know these things.
Yeah.
Freddy is much scarier in the first film Versus like this one, it's like, oh, we see his whole deal, and it's like, oh, he's abusing his wife, and his daughter sees it, and oh, what does that do to her? It's like, no, I don't really want him to be a family man.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want any of this. I don't want to know about his mother being raped. I just want him to be. It's like, you give me the basic. Like, he was sort of like a weird. He was a pedophile. He was a child killer. So these parents got together and said, "We're gonna fuck you up." And then he's dead, but he's so angry about it that his spirit prevails and is able to reach into people's dreams and kill them. That's all I need.
Yeah.
That's good enough.
They did decide to give a lot of explanation and stuff. And I mean, while all of that might be interesting to find out, it's screen time that really didn't need to happen. And in my opinion, I mean, I get it. It didn't take too much away from me, but it was something that wasn't necessary to have.
And also I get it because with each sequel, it's like, well, what are we going to do now? We can't just kill these kids. And it's like, yeah, we get it. Freddy, we know what his deal is, so we have to like add a few things to who he is and who this character is and why they're connected. We have to give them something. So I get it.
Yeah.
But it's like, I didn't really need all that. So I don't really need all of the sequels. You know, it's like one or two are good for me.
Right off the top of your head, do you have a favorite death from this franchise?
That's a no.
Well, not a favorite. I mean, but is there a death that was like fun or scary to to watch or whatever? Just one that stands out to you to be pretty cool.
I think, and it's probably, I mean, for the next movie, New Nightmare, we've already talked about it, but Julie, I think that one was effective because it's just so sad.
Yeah.
It's like, we've already seen this when Tina was dragged across the ceiling, and so it's like her best friend, it's like, you have to go through this again.
Yeah.
So I think that one sticks out in my mind, probably.
The one that gets to me a little bit is part 3. It was when Philip died. He was the one who created all the puppets.
Oh, yeah. See, and that's when I was talking about cringeworthy.
Yeah, so that, well, first of all, I really like the character Philip. You know, he, when they were in group, he was the rational one, the one noticing, like, okay, we're all dreaming about the same person. Nobody cares about that, but yet you just keep blaming us for our dreams or whatever. And then he was the first to go. But that sort of stop motion claymation of Freddy was pretty cool to look at. But it was also super devastating to watch it happen because all of the kids came out. Like, Joey went out and he gathered all the kids up and they were all screaming his name, just trying to get him to wake up. And then it was just inevitable. Like, there was no way they were going to wake him up from the dream. And then when he dies, it's really sad. And then, like, I don't know, like, they just blamed it on suicide. He quit, he gave up, and I was like, that's not what's happening. But his death in general, just with the whole veins and everything, I just, that was so bad.
Yeah, that's another good point that you make about the third one. It had a much more interesting theme that people probably weren't even really dealing with yet. They had just started to, like, like after school specials, where we're talking about teen suicide and cutting and
Taryn, she had the drug problem,
depression,
and,
all of these things. It's like they were all in this asylum, or I don't know, that's not the right word, but they were there getting treatment. So it's like, oh well, he killed himself. Yeah, that's what everyone rationalizes it. I don't know how they rationalize old girl jumping into the TV though. Like, what do they think? She like got on a trampoline and
I mean, she was literally hanging off
from
the ground.
TV.
Like, there was no way, and then they just kind of moved on.
She killed herself. So that one, even though it's like that was a good sequence from the film, it's like, what did you guys think she did? You really just accepted? Yep, she sure did.
Something that I also noticed is that Freddy loved to use the word bitch a lot. I mean, it kind of came out every time.
He's a misogynist.
Like, well, I mean, welcome to primetime, bitch was like legendary quote. But one thing I loved was...
An Uber driver said that to me. We're talking about it.
In Freddy's Dead, like, when the girl was like using her fighting skills to take him out, and then he got one move over her, and then he goes, goes, "Kung Fu this bitch," and I just thought that was so funny. But he loved using that word a lot, and I just thought that was so funny. And of course, it was more towards women, but it was just hilarious.
Yeah.
So okay, let's move on to Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which we talked about.
Yeah.
A lot, but so there is a lot of stuff that I noticed when I rewatched it. So I'm just gonna see if you remember any of this. So the cameos, I liked seeing. John Saxon came back, reprised his role.
Yeah.
But during the funeral scene of Nancy's husband, Rod was there. From
I
the
remember
first
seeing
one.
Tuesday Nights there too.
So is that her? That's what I was gonna ask you if that was Tuesday night, because I
There's
couldn't
a couple
tell.
of them just there, not saying anything, but
Yeah.
they showed up.
And then Wes Craven.
Johnny Depp was supposed to be there.
Yeah, he was supposed to. I mean, he did agree to come back for Freddy's Dead, so I guess it was just like pushing it, asking him to come back.
Well, yeah, but he said he would have.
Yeah.
If Wes said, because Wes was like, I wanted to ask you, and he's like, well, you should have asked me. I would have. So that's a good lesson. Closed mouths don't get fed. If you want something, you got to ask for it. Not all the time, but I'm just saying, like, sometimes you never know until you say it. This is one of those examples in showbiz.
But I like this one for its throwback to the first one a little bit. There was a lot of reminders about the first one. One scene that I don't remember bringing up from the last time we talked about it. It was what was it that I brought up? It was no, maybe it wasn't this one. Maybe I was thinking of the feather one where he kind of rips the feather, but I think I'm thinking of something else.
Rips the feather.
Yeah, like in the first one when he pops through the mirror and then he slashes the pillows and wipes the feathers all everywhere, because they did that in Nightmare 3 with the padded room. But I remember that attack that they had in New Nightmare during the reunion. I believe another pillow got slashed.
Maybe.
I think so. I can't remember. But one thing that I wanted to bring up with that one was when Wes Craven and Heather have their meeting about the movie and the idea that they need to create another movie to capture him again. They talk about Freddy as an entity, as a demon. Mm-hmm. It's not Freddy. It's a demon that has been released. Or actually, so it's I think the way that he put it, it's this known demon that's just out. And there's more than one. There's not a specific group of them, but I guess the way to capture one would be storytelling. And so anybody can pretty much do it. And Wes Craven captured one of these demons in the Freddy franchise. Mm-hmm. And then he was written. This is hilarious. I can't quote it, unfortunately. But he's sitting there with Heather, and he's talking about how the entity got released into our world. And he said that a movie or a franchise that gets watered down and just like thrown in there for shit, that or it just dies, or people just have like this big overall like hatred for the character, or just something to where people just don't believe in it being scary anymore. That's when it got loose. So to me, that felt like a dig on the franchise, on the fact that this movie and this character has been watered down and pretty much treated like shit since the first, and this is how the entity was released.
I don't think it was a dig. I think it's just a fact. He created a character, and then the studio needed to make money, wanted to make money, and they ran with it. And if you think of like when you worship a god, it's like you don't really believe in it anymore. Mm-hmm. Is it real? Yeah. And so then it's like it's free to do its own thing, but it still liked Freddy, and that's why it kept the guise of Freddy. So Freddy is like it's not Robert Englund. Freddy is the demon. It's like Robert Englund is the actor portraying this character, but then Freddy has become the entity itself. Well,
that's what they mentioned. So Wes Craven said, well, why is this happening now? Like, why is it can shapeshift into anything it wants? It can go anywhere. And then Wes Craven says, well, this demon has gotten used to playing Freddy. He just wants to continue doing that in our world.
Yeah.
And so this is why Nancy needs to make a choice to play her character one last time, because this demon believes that he's Freddy, so the only one who can really take him out is the one who defeated him first. And he used the term embarrass. You embarrassed him. You made him look like a fool. So Heather can't do it. Nancy has to do it. And there was something else that I noticed also towards the end. When she does make the conscious decision to play Nancy, Freddy does refer to her as Heather. He does say the name Heather. I don't know if that was a mistake.
When?
This was after he comes out and is in the real world, and I think they're, she's chasing him down, in his like lair or whatever. He refers to her as Heather.
I don't remember this.
Yeah, I wish that I can give you quote by quote like where in the scene, and I'll pull it up like after so I can show you. But yeah, he actually refers to her as Heather, and so I'm thinking he now knows that he's more than just a character. He obviously knows that this woman is more than just Nancy. He's obviously but he refers to her as Heather, and I was like, I wonder if that was a mistake on their part or whatnot, but.
Have to watch it.
Yeah. It was also funny to see like that scene where they're talking. I don't know if that was actually Wes Craven's home, but his house was lit. Like he had
That ain't his house.
Just the opening of his scene, like he had this long ass pool that was like on his roof. I was just like, damn, Wes.
Not his house.
But I also love the acting in that scene too, because he like gets distraught over the fact that he knew that her husband was gonna die, because she goes, "You knew, didn't you?" And he was like, "It was just a dream." And then he gets up and walks away as if it was like some soap opera. I was like, Wes trying to get an Oscar. Look at him.
He's trying to get an Emmy.
Yeah.
Susan Lucci.
But it was also cool too when Freddy comes out of the blanket. Nancy agrees to the whole thing. He comes out and he's walking out, and he does this sort of Nosferatu sort of image in the shadow. It's literally like the same pose, and I thought that was a really cool nod to that movie. They did the exact same thing, so I thought that was pretty cool that I noticed before.
That's
as well.
cool.
Yeah. But what I also thought was kind of funny was the scene with all the nurses. They were a bunch of mean girls. Just that whole trick on getting the shot into his arm, I thought was wrong. Like, I don't know if it's illegal to be able to do that when your mom says nope, like don't put anything in my baby, like you're not to do that.
Because they were questioning her mental state, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the logistics are.
They were haters from the start. Immediately she was just like, "Oh, you let him watch your films and blah blah blah," and I know that you're just
evil out of him. She was so dramatic.
She was very dramatic.
Doctor,
but yeah,
whatever.
those nurses was a bunch of mean girls. It was, and then like when the nurse put the shot in his arm, she turns around and this nurse just gave this smirk like, "Yeah, bitch, we got you." And I was like,
That's why she got popped.
I know that's why she got popped. But yeah, I thought that was kind of harsh. Like they were just talking behind her back and all that stuff, and I was just like,
Yeah, it's not professional.
it's not professional at all. Yeah, I thought that was kind of weird.
So now that we've reached the 7th film in the series, looking at the beginning, that was directed by Wes. Written and directed by Wes. We get not even halfway through. He comes back to write because he felt like, oh, that second one left a bad taste in my mouth. He steps away again for like 3 films because he's off doing his own thing. And it's like, how does everything compare? I feel like when he was included in the process, the films were much better. The quality of the storytelling, everything was much better.
I agree.
Freddy was more of a force to be reckoned with instead of like, he's funny, let's go watch this movie because Freddy's funny. And especially this last one, he was scary. He was what he always was intended to be. He had some little one-liners, and he's still a creepy perv, but he's scary.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that he was able to do this one last time.
Yeah, so was I. So this movie, Freddy vs. Jason, I think was a product of too many cooks in the kitchen. They tried so hard to figure out some way to connect the two and also give them a reason to be against each other. And I don't know if it was literally just, oh, I'm the better horror icon than you, because this wasn't a meta movie. They needed to figure out how these two connected. I don't remember exactly where Crystal Lake takes place, but
it's like in Ohio.
Is it also in Ohio?
Well, and I thought Springfield was in Illinois.
No,
Maybe that's a real city in Illinois.
Springwood is in Ohio.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's in Ohio for sure. But like, I wonder exactly where these two are located, because the whole thing was...
I'm sure it's on a map.
Yeah, but so they had
Haddonfield, Illinois.
They had the idea of Freddy being a janitor at Crystal Lake, and he also, decided not to help, Jason get out of the water.
That's right.
There was all these other.
Did you ever read
scenarios.
any of the other screenplays?
No, I did not.
So I read 2 of the screenplays.
Oh, okay.
One was kind of decent.
All right.
And I mean, so if you've seen the 5th Nightmare and you saw Jason Goes to Hell, there are the 2 surviving women who have children. So then they were bringing them together through the children. Like, I don't know, like Jason, because I think that was his descendant in Jason Goes to Hell. Yes. So it was like he was dead, but then there was like this whole weird cult that was worshipping Jason, and they were bringing him back to life. And Freddy was more of just like this spectral entity trying to like latch on and come back. And so at the end they did have like, they did duke it out when they brought him back, but it was Alice with her kid.
Okay. And
whatever their names were with their
Jacob,
kid.
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And at the end they had this big battle, and then they went to hell, and it was like they were fighting. And I think they tried to include it in this one at the very end, where it's like they're in hell just battling forever, and there's all these demons around watching them. But sorry to cut you off, but so I mean they had so many different screenplays, but it's like it was I think when you're saying like too many cooks in the kitchen, yeah, there was so many ideas, and it was just that one idea of like, we just want to see them fight.
Yeah.
And I think for me personally, I got what I wanted.
Okay.
Because it was called Freddy vs. Jason, not The Theory of Freddy, and an artful look into Jason Voorhees' life and time. I mean, it was just...
Well, a lot of people was waiting for this for a long time.
Yeah.
And also, this was sort of a fan-made movie in a way, because nobody really wanted to do it. It was the hype and the assumption that it was going to happen that they just gave us what we wanted. This was never in the plans. It was just supposed to be funny. And just like, yeah, we also know that Freddy is also a huge icon who just went to hell. So let's just make a joke, but we took it too seriously and we needed it to happen. And so they just created this movie. And I think the idea that they came up with is pretty decent. Just to get this movie out, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. Freddy still stuck with his mythology that he needed to be feared in order to stay alive.
That's right. That's what I was going to ask you. So, in this film, they do make a big deal of it. It's like where the kids are like, who?
Yeah.
I don't know this, because now they've been sort of sheltered. They don't know his name, because that way, if they don't know about him, he can't get into their dreams. So that's what I was going to ask you. In the earlier films, was that a thing? Because then you have Tuesday Night, like, oh my God, it's him, and nobody knows. But it's like, so once you say it, it's like they're infected.
Yeah.
Freddy Krueger. So it's like, now I can get in there. That's how this movie portrayed it, where it's like once they knew Freddy Krueger, then he could get to any of them.
So the way I see it is that, so in Freddy versus Jason, there's this big talk about Hypnosil. Do you remember the pill that suppresses the dreams? They actually bring up Hypnosil in part 3. That's what Nancy is taking. And remember, there was that whole experiment, like, we got to get these kids on Hypnosil. And then that older woman doctor was like, no, I can't allow that. And then the guy was like, we need to do this. We need to figure out what's going on. And until then, these kids have to stop dreaming. And so they tried to get Hypnosil, and it took forever, and blah, blah, blah. But anyways, Hypnosil already existed before Freddy versus Jason. And so I'm thinking that when part 4 came around, that because these kids were the last Elm Street kids, it was all done in the hospital. And so they tried to sort of cut down on the relevance in Elm Street because nobody really knew about it in Springwood. It was really just those parents. And I think when you lock up the rest of the kids in a hospital, there's nowhere to spread it around. And I think by that point, people did forget about them. And then in part 4, the only 3 kids, they just didn't want to talk about him anymore.
Yeah.
Because like you keep thinking
they
about him,
move on
he's
with their
gonna
lives.
yeah. And so Kristen, she just kept having dreams about it, and then bam, here it came. And then in part 5, the same thing kind of happened. So as long as you just kept quiet about it, like it was okay. So they stuck with that, and I thought that was a good tie-in to bring these two together. So he uses Freddy to go to Elm Street, kill a few people. Obviously, if it happens in that town, they're going to think it's Freddy, and then the name comes up. My thing was, this man came out of the grave. I don't know exactly where in Jason Goes to Hell where he was buried, but he comes out and then just walks to Elm Street. How the hell did you get to Elm Street? How did you even know where it was?
Because he's Jason.
We'll just go with that.
So they play on, it's kind of a joke, but they play on the love of his mother, and that's what's always driven him through the years. His mother was killed, and she loved him and took care of him. That's why he just won't stop. He will not stop killing people who keep invading Camp Crystal Lake because she said don't come back, and people still do. So he's like, you're disrespecting my mother, I'm gonna kill you. And that's what she tells him to do. So he does it. It's kind of it's like a slapsticky, over the top type of scenario, but I had fun. It was a fun time. It worked for me. And you don't really care too much about the kids, because this is really not about the teenagers. It's about Freddy vs. Jason.
And I actually like the fact that they did that. I did not need to care about the kids. I just wanted them to act well. I didn't want
some of them were terrible.
Very, very bad.
So I would say the supporting teenagers were fine. The 2 leads...
Ugh.
It's just, I don't understand. And I know that there was some recasting, like Brad Renfro was originally the boyfriend, and then he dropped out for whatever because he was going through all kinds of stuff. Rest in peace, Brad Renfro.
Rest in peace.
But, oh my God, Monica Keena,
she was...
It's not like this was her first rodeo, so I don't know why she was just always, oh my God.
Her face in school... When the guy comes in and was like, yeah, he was he was just ascribing all of Freddy to her, and she was just, what do I do? And it was just not fun to watch.
Just not good. They had Catherine Isabel in there for a quick cameo. She would have made
a great lead woman.
And I remember people complaining, behind the scenes, they were like, oh, she was over the top. I'm like, Catherine Isabel, she was good. I think she was fine. And plus, she has a much better resume.
Yeah.
So it's like, they probably should have just given it to her. Kelly Rowland, I love her, so I thought she did better than Monica Keena.
She kind of played the angry black girl, though.
She did. She was the stereotype all the way.
Constantly hating on Nerd Boy Linderman.
Oh.
And just kept trying
to cut out their kiss.
Oh, they did kiss.
They kissed, but they cut it out.
I knew they had something going on.
Like when she leaves him at the tree, she does kiss him, and then he dies.
I knew they had something going on.
I felt like they should have left that in.
I would have loved to have seen that. Because Linderman stands up to her, and then all of a sudden she's like, oh, I like him now. But it's just... But yeah, she played this angry black girl. She even used the F word. I'm sorry.
That was bad.
I don't like that.
And also, that was ad-libbed.
You're kidding.
Everything else that she said was cool. But it's like, and
wow.
So then we have to kind of unpack that. It's like, why did she say that,
Kelly?
Why did that word come out?
I did not like that at all.
I mean, it's like that was years ago, so we can't frame that around her entire existence. I love Kelly Rowland, but That was bad. That was really, really bad.
So something you mentioned earlier about Jason's skill. In each movie is just something is different about
He
each
has a
one.
GPS.
If you remember, Jason was like stronger than the Hulk in this one. Like anything he did was like full. I mean, I couldn't believe how strong that man was.
Yeah,
it was way over the top. It was just too much.
I mean,
was way too much.
This movie was really violent, actually.
Yes,
like
very,
the
very
things
violent.
that he could do.
Notice though that throughout the whole count, Freddy only killed
I noticed.
one person.
I noticed.
He only got one.
Uh-huh.
And I thought...
But I liked that, because, and I felt like that paid homage to them, because Freddy, well, yes, he has a higher body count in some movies. He doesn't. That's not what it's about. It's about being in people's dreams and scaring them.
Yeah.
And, he likes the hunt, I think.
Yeah.
Jason, he kills 3 people in one motion. It's like he just kills people.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm not a big fan of it, because there's really nothing about the story.
Okay.
Kill.
Yeah.
So that was like, it's like he just can't stop. He cannot stop. He just keeps killing them. That's all he does.
So here's the thing about like how they kept Freddy at bay. They made the whole town forget about him. They put all the kids who experienced Freddy into an asylum, and the rest of them, excuse me, the rest of them just didn't know who he was.
Mm-hmm.
And they used the pills and everything. Wouldn't you think a good way to forget about Freddy is to destroy the fucking house that reminds everyone about... I mean,
Yeah.
you had the woman literally live in the house. Like, I just don't understand why
a
the
historical
house
landmark.
is still up and running. I told you I went to that house, right?
Yeah, I think you took a picture.
Yeah, I took a picture.
Where is it?
It's in West Hollywood.
That's so weird.
I know.
That's so
It was
funny.
when I moved here, I never thought about it. I just thought it was way too far in LA for me to even travel
All the
to it.
gay
But it's
boys.
right in West Hollywood.
Right next door. Hey.
And it's funny too. So the front door right now, it's red. It was red throughout the most of the series, but in part 1 it was blue. And Freddy vs. Jason, the door was yellow. I did like Freddy vs. Jason. I remember watching this movie in theaters, and I had a blast. It was just so much fun to see those two in the same frame. I mean, even the trailer, I was watching it like... I just kept watching it over and over again because I just love the fact that the two of them were in the same.
That was a good trailer, too.
They mixed the themes of the two in the opening sequence, just music-wise.
Mm-hmm.
And just Freddy's face when he is brought out of the dream and he sees Jason and he is scared shitless was like... The whole theater just went crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But I showed this movie to a friend of mine who didn't see it in theaters. And I watched her reaction to it. She did not like this movie at all. And what drove her off, like, over the wall was actually when Freddy and Jason finally fight. And all of a sudden, Freddy just knows every single martial arts kung fu move in the book, doing all these high kicks and these, he didn't do like backflips, but he was like doing elbow like into his like face or whatever. It was just the way that Freddy was fighting. It just seemed super fake, cheesy, and it just didn't give her, because she loves Freddy a lot. And like once he started fighting Jason the way that he did, it just was not cute to her at all. She just didn't like it. She was like, I reject this. This is not who Freddy is, fighting like he, can kick anybody's ass. It was just weird. But they needed some kind of balance because obviously Jason could take him. So, but I will say the blood and guts and their scene just knifing each other on that deck was pretty tight.
To counter that, it's Freddy versus Jason. He needed to be able to fight him.
Yeah.
So, and it was part of the times. This came out in 2003, so it was right after the big Matrix. Everyone was doing wire work, high kicks all day. So I wasn't mad at it. It's what I expected. I expected them to fight. I expected them to physically go at each other. I mean, Freddy gets his ass whooped pretty much for the most part. So it's like he hits Jason, but it's just, it doesn't even do anything to him. So I wasn't mad.
Yeah.
He's fought some other kung fu masters, quotes. throughout the movie series, so I'm sure he picked up some shit.
I guess so.
So it's fine. I'm willing to suspend disbelief for this movie because it was just fun.
Yeah,
it was just a fun, good time. Acting aside from certain people, it was just a good time. So.
I did like how they managed to work in both locations. You know, part of the movie was in Elm Street, then part of it was in Jason. Everybody got their equal dues, whoever liked which series. So, I mean, for what it is, I mean, and it was also at a time when a lot of horror icons, well, not a lot, but, you know, most horror icons were given this comedic jump, you know, like Chucky and everything. You know, even Jason was kind of laugh out loud a little bit with some of his kills, and
so laugh out
yeah
loud.
So I mean I guess it made sense for what it was. So yeah so all right, well, I think we went through the entire franchise there. Anything that we missed that you want to point out that you just like thought of right now
besides the remake? We're not gonna
touch on the remake. Not today. Yeah. But yeah, overall, I think that Freddy will always be one of those icons that you can't kill, you know? And I think
no matter what.
I think there's always going to be an audience for Freddy regardless. I mean, I think studios need to stop creating a Freddy for a new generation. They need to get used to the older version and try to remake him into something different. I think you're just wasting your time. I don't know if Freddy is a character that the millennials or the next generation after that is going to accept. Just a guy traveling in dreams to kill people. I think it was a lot better for our generation, or, you know, to witness stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's a great character, and I think it has promise, but just don't try and mix it up to abide to this generation. Don't fix what isn't broke. Just make him scary again. That's my only wish. If you do it again, just make him scary again. Make him, you know, that's one. Well, I mean, this is the one thing that I will say about the remake is that you really got the sense that he definitely was a child molester and abuser.
Yes.
They pointed that out head on. Most of the story focused on the fact that before he became Freddy, that he really was bad with those kids, and that's what I liked about that. We only got the intention that he was, but we got to see it in this one, and I really liked that a lot. But just make him scary again. That is my only thing. That's what I'll say.
I'll just say, stop making them. And that's not me being hateful. That's just it's part of a specific period of time, and I don't think that you need to remake Freddy. I don't mind remakes, just like I don't mind Broadway revivals. You know, we can't expect Idina Menzel to play Elphaba forever. So you bring in new casts, new stories. I'm all about that. But I think for Freddy, I think it's done. I don't think that there's a need or even a desire for more stories because there's really nowhere else to go. Yeah. Okay. So we'll close out with our bitch really of the week, and I decided to pull one from the franchise. I don't have too much hate on this death or this character. You know, usually I'm very passionate about the ones that I pick, and it's just like, why? But it's still something that could have been avoided, and I think it was because of the writing and the way that it was filmed. It was the only way that it could happen. I don't know. But my bitch really of the week comes from Nightmare 3, Dream Warrior. It involves Will, our dream wizard master. He gets one on Freddy by becoming the wizard, and he shoots this sort of lightning plasma sort of thing at him. I don't know if Freddy was faking or not, but he obviously got affected by it. But Will sort of did this at a very good distance from Freddy. And he's shooting this, lightning at him. But for some reason felt compelled to run up to him. Really fast.
Really fast.
Like, he didn't even give it a moment.
As if maybe his lightning power was more powerful, if he was closer. I don't know. But I'm thinking if you have a range attack, keep your distance. There's no need to get near him. He ran right up to him. And then right when he got close, he just grabs him He was like, I don't believe in fairy tales, and stabs him. And he's dead. And it's just like, you could have ran. You could have distracted him. You could have just done anything to get away, to find the others, because you got split up. But yet you decide to run towards him. And it's just like, bitch, really? You didn't have to go near him. You had him. Just stay away. But he ran up to him, and then he died, and they moved on. Poor Will. Just, damn.
Yeah, it's just kind of a waste.
Yeah. So, yeah, that is Nightmare on Elm Street. I always love this franchise. It's fun to watch. And, for me, if they keep making them, I'm just going to keep seeing them. As long as they do something different, I'm down. So, there you have episode 16 of Wes Craven Month. And next week, we are going to do part 2 of Wes Craven's director filmography. We're going to go from where we left off, which is People Under the Stairs, and just do the rest of his directed films and talk about more Wes Craven.
Sure will.
All right. Thank you guys for listening this week once again. This one's a little longer, so we appreciate you sticking with us. If we happen to miss any kind of trivia, any cool moments in the whole franchise, be sure to comment on our many social medias of where you've heard it. SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube. And just come back next week on Bitch, I Ain't Scared.
Bye, guys.